Rome was burned to the ground. In 390 BC, Gallic warriors stormed the city, leaving nothing but ashes behind. Most civilizations would have vanished forever. But instead of disappearing, Rome rebuilt itself and became the largest city on Earth. Over 1 million people, 70 million ruled across 3 continents, all controlled from one city. Before New York, before London, before Tokyo, there was Rome. Rome, the year is 390 BC. The air is thick with smoke and ash. Gallic warriors have breached the gates, and the future capital of the world is burning to the ground. Rome lies in ruins, reduced to a smoldering collection of mud and timber villages. By all accounts, this should have been the end of the Roman story before it truly began. Most cities would never recover from such devastation, but the Romans were not like most people. From these ashes, they possessed a vision to build something eternal. Over the next few centuries, they transformed this destroyed settlement. They pushed the boundaries of engineering to create the largest, most advanced city the Earth had ever seen. A metropolis of over 1 million people, a concrete jungle of marble temples towering 10 stories high, and aqueducts stretching to the horizon, defying the laws of gravity. Using modern AI tools, we can peel back the layers of time. We reconstruct ancient Rome, not as a ruin, but as it stood at its absolute peak. Based on historical records and archaeological sites, we reveal the colors, the scale, and the grandeur that time has eroded, bringing the stone ghosts back to life. 70 million people across 3 continents bowed to this city, from the sands of Africa to the snows of Britain. They were all controlled from one centralized empire. And at the heart of that empire lay the Roman Forum. It was the neural center of the ancient world, the seat of unmatched political and social power. The Forum was not just a marketplace. It was home to dozens of temples and monuments, a dense forest of marble that screamed authority and divine favor. Here stood the Curia, the Senate House. Inside these relatively modest walls, 600 senators debated the laws that would govern millions of lives for centuries. Nearby stood the Rostra, the speaker's platform adorned with the prows of captured enemy ships. This was the stage for Rome's most dramatic political theater. It was here that Mark Antony stood. Following the brutal assassination of Julius Caesar, he delivered the funeral speech that turned the tide of history. On that exact spot, the Romans built the Temple of Julius Caesar. It was a statement. Caesar was no longer a man, but the first Roman declared a god. But perhaps the most sacred place was the small circular Temple of Vesta. Here, a holy flame burned, a fire that could never be allowed to go out. It was tended by the Vestal Virgins. These powerful women served for 30 years, guardians of Rome's safety, possessing unique legal privileges denied to all others. If the flame died, it was believed Rome would fall. Their duty was absolute, their influence immense, weaving religion directly into the survival of the state. Above the Forum, looking down on the politics, rose the Palatine Hill. This was the exclusive domain of the emperors, a hill of palaces. It began modestly with the Domus Augusti. Augustus, the first emperor, wanted to appear as a man of the people, living in relative simplicity. But as imperial power grew, so did the ego of the rulers. Emperor Domitian transformed the hill into a massive complex, the Domus Flavia. The Domus Flavia was for ceremonial show, huge banquet halls and throne rooms, designed to make visitors feel small and the emperor look like a god. Hidden away was the Domus Augustina, the private living quarters. Here, the emperors lived in unimaginable luxury, shielded from the eyes of the mob. The complex was so vast, it even included a private stadium, a 160-meter sunken garden shaped like a racetrack, just for the emperor's amusement. While emperors had their private luxuries, the public had the Circus Maximus. This was the largest stadium in the ancient world. It could hold a quarter of the city's population. Here they watched dangerous, high-speed chariot races that fueled intense, violent factional loyalties. The blues, greens, reds, and whites. Fans were obsessive, often rioting in the stands. The roar of the crowd here could be heard across the entire city. Yet, Rome's most famous surviving venue is the Colosseum, a massive stone amphitheater. that seated 50,000 people for a different kind of blood sport. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. This was the stage for gladiatorial spectacles, where men fought to the death for the entertainment of the masses. It wasn't just men. Exotic animal hunts transformed the arena into foreign lands, showcasing the emperor's reach over nature itself. Supporting this carnage was the Hypogeum, a complex underground labyrinth. It was a machine of elevators and trapdoors, hidden beneath the sand. Scenery, animals and fighters could appear instantly. As if by magic, it was engineering weaponized for theatrical violence. Romans were also deeply religious. They built engineering masterpieces to honor their gods, none greater than the Pantheon. It features the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. A perfect sphere could fit inside, a testament to Roman mastery of geometry. At its top is the oculus, an open eye to the heavens. It provides the only light, a moving spotlight that connects the temple to the cosmos. While the Pantheon honored all gods, the spiritual heart of the empire was the Temple of Jupiter atop Palatine Hill. This was where triumphal processions ended. Victorious generals, faces painted red, would climb this hill to sacrifice to the king of the gods. But power needs protection. Military might was centralized in the Praetorian Guard, elite bodyguards stationed right in the city. They lived at the Castra Praetoria, a fortress within the city. Originally protectors, they eventually became a politically dangerous force. They realized that he who holds the sword holds the throne. They assassinated emperors and auctioned the empire to the highest bidder. Yet, a city of 1 million needs more than swords. It needs water. Essential infrastructure was the true secret of Rome's success. The Aqua Claudia aqueduct stretched 69 kilometers. It was a river in the sky, delivering fresh water to hundreds of thousands of people. The water flowed into the city, feeding fountains, baths, and the cramped, multi-story apartment buildings called insulae. These were the first high-rises, dangerous, prone to fire and collapse. They housed the vast majority of Rome's population in tight quarters. To escape their cramped homes, citizens spent their days at Trajan's market. This was a massive shopping complex built into the hillside. With over 150 shops and offices, it was the world's first shopping mall. You could buy spices from India, silk from China, or grain from Egypt. And to finish the day, the public flocked to massive public baths like the Baths of Trajan. These were not just for washing. They were leisure centers with libraries, gyms, and gardens. They offered a quality of life to the common man unmatched for 1,000 years. Rome was the first to solve the challenge of urbanization. They didn't just build a city, they built a machine for living. They invented high-rises, stadiums, shopping malls, and advanced concrete chemistry that remains the blueprint for modern civilization. Walking through New York or Tokyo today, we are walking through the echoes of Rome. The scale has changed, but the fundamental design remains the same. From the ashes of 390 BC to the marble apex of the empire, Rome proved that a city is more than stones. It is an idea that despite the fall of the empire, never truly died. Rome is eternal. But the story of Rome is not just about stone and marble. It is about the people who walked these streets. The senators, the slaves, the soldiers, the mothers. Their lives were as complex and vivid as our own. We often see them as white statues, cold and distant, but their world was a riot of color. Their walls were painted in deep reds and ochres. Their clothes were dyed in indigo and saffron. The streets smelled of garlic, roasting meat, exotic spices, and open sewers. It was a sensory overload. Violence was casual. Death was public. But so was beauty. The Romans lived at the extremes of human experience. They were masters of assimilation. As they conquered, they absorbed gods, foods, and ideas, making Rome a melting pot. This adaptability was their greatest strength. It allowed the empire to evolve, to survive crises that would have destroyed rigid states. Let us look closer at the engineering. The roads, the veins of the empire. All roads lead to Rome was not a metaphor. It was a physical reality. 400,000 kilometers of roads bound the world together. They were built to march armies, but they carried trade, mail, and culture. They shrank the world. And let us not forget the law. The 12 Tables, the basis of Western jurisprudence. Innocent until proven guilty, the right to a trial, concepts born in these forums that protect us today. Yet, the law was not for everyone. Slavery was the engine of the empire. 1 in 3 people in Italy was enslaved. They worked the fields, mines, and households. They were the invisible force that allowed the citizens their leisure. It is the dark shadow cast by the marble monuments, a reminder that greatness often comes at a terrible cost. But the Roman spirit was also one of innovation. Glassblowing, for example, revolutionized windows and vessels. And medicine, while primitive by our standards, they developed surgical tools frighteningly similar to our own. Galen, the physician, mapped the nervous system. His writings guided doctors for 1,500 years. The Romans were pragmatic. They didn't just think they did. They were the great doers of antiquity. This pragmatism extended to the military. The legion, a machine made of men, disciplined, organized, and standardized. A legionary in Syria had the same kit as one in Spain. They built walls to define their world. Hadrian's Wall in Britain marked the edge of civilization. Beyond lay the barbarians. But often the barbarians were just people who refused to be Roman. Rome's fall was not a singular event, but a slow crumbling. Economic crisis, plague, and invasion chipped away at the foundation. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked the city. The circle had closed. The city that rose from fire burned again. But even in defeat, Rome conquered. The barbarians who took the city adopted its laws, its religion, and its language. Latin evolved into Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, the mother tongue of the West. Christianity, adopted by Rome, used Roman roads and Roman organization to become a global faith. The Pontifex Maximus was the high priest of pagan Rome. Today, it is the title of the Pope. So did Rome ever truly fall, or did it just change shape? We still use their calendar. July for Julius Caesar, August for Augustus. We live in their time. The Senate, the Capitol, the Republic. Our political vocabulary is Roman. They showed us that a multi-ethnic, multicultural superstate could function. And they showed us what happens when political polarization and corruption rot the system from within. It is a warning from history, a mirror held up to our own civilization. The Colosseum stands empty now, a husk, but stand in the center, and you can still hear the roar. Rome reminds us that nothing is permanent, not stone, not empires, only the legacy we leave behind. As the sun sets on the eternal city, the marble glows a soft pink. It is the same sun that shone on Caesar, on Nero, on Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." He understood that the city was not the buildings, but the accumulated wisdom of its people. We are the heirs of Rome, for better and for worse. Their ambition drives our skyscrapers. Their laws drive our courts. Their language drives our tongues. The dream of Rome was a dream of order in a chaotic world, sometimes brutal, sometimes beautiful, but always ambitious. As we look to the future, to Mars and beyond, we carry the Roman spirit of exploration. They conquered the known world. We aim for the stars. The scale changes. The impulse is the same. Senatus Populusque Romanus, SPQR, the Senate and people of Rome, a brand that lasted 1,000 years. Thank you for walking these ancient streets with us. The stones are silent now, but if you listen closely, you can still hear the footsteps of giants. Rome, the eternal city,